Hey crafty friends, it's Joy here for Honeybee Stamps, and today I created this little Santa vintage postcard using a few Lovely Layers dies. Okay, so this is the new Lovely Layers Vintage Santa from the most recent release, from Merry Moments. I have already die cut everything, and I'm just putting together his eyes. This is part of his face. We have his beard, his mustache, of course we have his body. I'm using some previous released stuff as well. I'm going to be using the Time to Go postcard, and then there is the Postmarked holiday stamp and die that I'm going to be using. I'm using the Saint Nick stamp and die, that's for the sentiment, and then for a little bit of the bells and holly berries and leaves, I'm going to be using that from the Lovely Layers Vintage Reindeer. So we have a lot of fun die cuts to put together, and this card turned out really, really cute. Okay, so that piece that's really kind of a bright pink is his cheeks on Santa, which is really, really cute. Now, I started to kind of glue some things that I first needed to glue his beard on before I glued on his mustache. So don't do this. I was just kind of getting ahead of myself and putting his face together. Up to the beard and the mustache, you can put together, but then you need to wait and put it on his body. Then I have his little fluff ball for the end of his hat, his cuffs on his jacket. Sorry, excuse me. I am still just getting over this cold or the flu rather, because I was been sick forever. And I'm just doing a little bit of vintage photo distress inking on those because he's a vintage Santa. I didn't want him to be all bright and shiny, although I will say that his mustache and beard, and he does have a little bit of hair that I kind of put on at the end because I forgot about that part, is bright white, but I did want his outfit to be just a little bit dingy in a good way. And then I just have some red ink, and for his mittens, his one arm, and then his body, I'm just adding a little bit of shading. He does have black boots. I obviously don't need to do anything with that. And then we're just going to get him put together. The postcard itself is larger than an A2 size, so I think this would be cute in a gift with a gift bag. You could make this for yourself and put it in, like, you know, those cute dough bowls that you add little decorations to. I think you could kind of prop this in. I think it's actually a really cute decoration. So super, super darling. So you could do stuff with it like that. Okay, let's get him glued together. I do end up having to peel up his mustache. It did peel up part of his cheek, but it glued down and you would never know the difference. So not a big deal. I don't have to redo that part. But when it was time to put his mustache or his beard on, I'm like, oh no, but no big deal. We have his arm here. We're going to get that glued on. We have his cute little cuffs and his mittens, and you could have done those in a white. I just kept it with the red. I thought it looked cute. Let me get these glued on here. My glue just kept clogging on me for some reason. I'm kind of getting down to the bottom of my glue, so I need to get another one. And then we can put that right there. And you can just start to see how the Santa comes to life. He is so darling. I just love him. I love this past release with all of the vintage type things. All right, let's get that one there. And then our mittens. And then we can put his beard on this. I'm like, oh no. But the glue hadn't like completely dried, so it was able to come up somewhat. So let me line that up, and then we can just put that right back in place. And he is perfect. You just don't even know. Then we have his darling boots. Then once that's done, we can set him aside and start working on some of the other little pieces. I'm going to do some white heat embossing on red cardstock for quite a few things on this card. So we have the sentiment that is from the Saint Nick stamp set, and it says Santa Claus is coming to town, which is obviously perfect for this. It's so cute. And that stamp set is darling because it has a big, huge Santa on it with tons of awesome sentiments. So I prepped my cardstock with an anti-static powder tool, stamped it with clear embossing ink, and then sprinkled on my white heat embossing and used my heat tool to emboss that. Then I have die cut one of the larger stamps from the Time to Go postcard. This is the insert piece, and using the Postmarked holiday red rubber stamps, I'm just finding an image that I want to stamp. I'm just going to use this snowflake, and it's stamped a little off center. I actually didn't mind it. I thought it actually looked nice, so no big deal. And then I'm going to heat that up, sprinkle on that white embossing powder, and heat that with my heat tool. Then from the same Postmarked holiday stamp set, there's also coordinating dies, which you can see here on the right side of my screen. I am picking out the 2 and the 5, and then another little stamp that is a present. And on just a scrap of red cardstock, I'm going to stamp those and white heat emboss those and cut those out. That's going to be all part of our cute little decoration on our postcard here. And I loved the 2 and the 5, obviously making 25. I loved that. Same thing, sprinkling on that white embossing powder and heating that with my heat tool. And I will use the coordinating little dies for that to cut those out. So let's get that out of the way. And once your embossing powder has cooled, just lightly buff off with a dry rag or paper towel, but very lightly, the powder off of your, especially your darker cardstock. Just wipe that off really quick. So here are those little dies that you can use. And I'm going to still use some of these images from the Postmarked holiday stamp set for the back of our postcard with a little bit of vintage photo. And I'll show you that here in just a minute. So I'm going to run that through my die cut machine. And then we have those pieces. So I'm going to just ink blend around the edges with vintage photo. I'm just using a craft cardstock. And then there is that red piece that I die cut from the Time to Go postcard. Now there is a Christmas add-on to the Time to Go postcard. There is a whole slew of Christmas things. Weirdly, I did not need that for this card. Then I splattered that with the vintage photo, and I'm going to glue this on. And you could stamp the background before you glue this on, but it was not a big deal. So actually, I forgot that I wanted to stamp it, but I'm going to adhere my little snowflake stamp with the outer frame part with a 1mm foam adhesive. It's a low profile foam adhesive. I'm going to put that right there up at the top. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I do want to stamp. So I'm going to take that Christmas tree. So that stamp set there on the left is the Postmarked holiday and has tons of beautiful little images. We have our cancellation mark. I'm going to do a poinsettia and some snowflakes. And you're not even going to see all of these, but just to have a little bit of it in the background, I think is just pretty, almost like this is patterned paper on your postcard. So there's those little snowflakes. And we're going to call that good. But how cute is that? And our Santa's going to be sitting here. So he's larger than the postcard. So, you know, you could also put this in a 5x7 envelope. I'm pretty sure it would fit a 5x7. Or like I said, you could just put it in with the gift bag or use it as a decoration like I'm going to use. Then we're putting together our greenery here. There are 2 cute little bells that go with this that I die cut from gold mirror cardstock. And then of course we have our red berries. I'm going to tuck those in. And I did a lot of red on this card. So Santa-y, which was perfect, but I loved this pop of green. But look at that sentiment, and it fits perfect because that postcard has embossed. It says postcard at the top, to address. It has lines where we put the Santa Claus is coming to town. So it fit perfect. So I'm going to put 2mm. No, I did 1mm behind Santa. No, 2mm behind Santa, 2mm behind everything else except for that snowflake stamp. And I'm going to put those 2 little ones together. Isn't that so cute? I love this. And we're just going to tuck that other little one in with some liquid glue. That's the one that has the present on it. Then I want to finish this off with some white pops of color. I just felt like it could use that. It felt a little more like snow. So I'm just going to put this in quite a few areas. And I love it. I love how that turned out, that it just gave that nice bright white. There's something for me when I'm doing vintage cards or distressed cards or things like that. And I forgot his little hair. So here's his little bangs go on the front of his hat. But I love that pop of white on those type of cards for myself. I think it's really pretty. So let's take a look at this darling postcard with that Santa. See, this is why I think it really could be a decoration piece. So super, super cute. And I hope you guys liked this project. So thanks so much for joining me. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to Honeybee Stamps YouTube channel. And thank you again. And I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday.